Welcome back, viewers. You're watching WION World is One. I'm Shivan Chandna. This is Speed News. Let's start. Israel's offensive in Gaza continues. A strike on a tent encampment housing displaced families in Khan Younis has killed at least 10 people. Video obtained shows fire burning from displacement tents while civil defense members and other people are trying to rescue the injured victims. Medics say that at least 35 people have been killed in Israeli attacks since early on Wednesday, with more devastating strikes being reported in recent hours. Another airstrike killed 10 people, including Fatima Hassouna, who was a well-known writer and photographer and had documented the war. The United Nations says an estimated 500,000 people have been displaced or uprooted since the end of the ceasefire, when Israel resumed military operations in Gaza. Since the 18th of March, Israel claims to have turned 30% of the Gaza Strip into a security buffer zone and struck around 1,200 terror targets, which it said resulted in more than 100 targeted eliminations. US President Donald Trump reportedly waved off an Israeli plan to attack Iran and its nuclear sites in favor of negotiating a deal with Iran instead. A New York Times report citing administration officials and others claimed that the attacks were planned for next month, but Trump decided not to back the Israeli plans. The plan would have required US military support for Israel to carry out that attack. Now, as per the report, Trump made his decision after months of internal debate over whether to pursue diplomacy with Iran or support Israel in seeking to set back Iran's ability to build a bomb, a nuclear bomb that is. It resulted in a rough consensus for now against military action if Trump decided to back it. However, as per the report, some American officials were more open to considering the Israeli plans. And this included General Michael Kurilla, the head of US Central Command, and the National Security Advisor Mike Waltz. California is suing the federal government over US President Donald Trump's on-again, off-again tariffs. This is according to the governor and attorney general. The move marks the strongest pushback yet against a tariff rollout that has sent global markets into meltdown and left businesses across the US fretting about uncertainty. With over 40 million people and a large outward-facing economy that accounts to 14% of the US GDP, California looks set to bear the brunt of the economic damage forecasters expect from recent gyrations. Newsom's office says California, which would be the world's fifth largest economy if it were an independent country, would lose billions of dollars in revenue if Trump's tariff policies shrink international trade. Former hostage Noah Argamani is included in the Time magazine's list of 100 most influential people of 2025. Alongside major world leaders such as US President Trump and UK Prime Minister Starmer, Argamani was abducted by Hamas in October 2023 and spent a total of 245 days in captivity in Gaza until she was rescued by the Israeli Defense Forces during an operation in June 2024. Now, the former hostage has traveled across the world to speak with politicians, other leaders about the need to take action to secure the release of those still being held captive, including her partner Avinatan Or. He is one of the 24 hostages who Israel believes is still alive. A US government agency has asked for a criminal probe of New York State Attorney General Letitia James, one of President Trump's main adversaries, on grounds of alleged mortgage fraud. The US media reported James drew the wrath of Trump after leading a civil fraud case against him that saw the Republican ordered to pay a multi-million-dollar penalty last year. Trump and his allies attacked James during the trial in New York. The US media has reported that the Federal Housing Finance Agency has asked the Justice Department to investigate James, alleging that she appeared to have falsified records related to properties that she owns in Virginia and New York to obtain better loan terms. An Indian student is fighting for his right to stay in the US and complete his education. Chinmay Deore is not the only one. According to reports in the student visas crisis in the United States, it has deepened with hundreds of international students finding that their immigration status is being suddenly terminated. Chinmay Deore, a 21-year-old Indian student at Wayne State University, is facing possible deportation after his F1 student status was terminated without explanation. Chinmay, who is studying computer science and anticipates graduating in May 2025, has never been charged with a crime in the US. He first entered US with his family on a H4 dependent visa in 2004, transitioned to F1 student status in 2022 after aging out of H4 status, and currently resides with immediate family in Canton. He is part of a lawsuit against the Department of Homeland Security and immigration officials seeking reinstatement of his student status to complete his studies. Japan's Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba has said that tariff talks with the United States won't be easy. Ishiba added that this round of talks has created a foundation for the next steps. This is after Japanese negotiator Ryosei Akazawa told reporters in Washington that US President Trump believes that Japan is a priority in trade talks. Japan is one of the first countries to formally kick off negotiations, an early test of Washington's willingness to cede ground on the duties that have roiled financial markets and stoked fears of recessions. Trump's administration has threatened to bar Harvard University from enrolling foreign students unless it submits to strict federal oversight. The White House claims the institution, renowned for producing 162 Nobel laureates, has denied requests for transparency on admissions, hiring and ideological bias. The Department of Homeland Security says failure to prove full compliance could cost Harvard its ability to host international students. DH Secretary Kristi Noem has already cancelled 2 federal grants worth over $2.7 million, calling Harvard unfit to receive taxpayer funds. A sharply worded letter demands comprehensive records on foreign student visa holders, citing alleged illegal and violent activity with a deadline of April 30th. Non-compliance could see Harvard stripped of its SEVP certification, a move that would send shockwaves through global academia. A fireball lit up the night sky in Mexico, sparking awe across the country. But what was it? A shooting star or a meteorite or something else? Well, the exact answer is it was a bolide. Around 3 a.m. local time on Wednesday, a bright object initially appearing to be a meteorite lit up the skies over Mexico's capital. Now, here's what a bolide is. It also generated a rumble which prompted social media users to doubt what was happening and their own safety as well. But scientists were quick to note that the object rocketing across the skies was not a UFO, it was a bolide. Now, bolide, they've been defined by NASA officials as fireballs which are exceptionally bright meteors that are spectacular enough to be seen over a very wide area. United Nations has sounded alarm in South Sudan, where escalating clashes have left nearly 200 people dead since March. It has called on the international community to help stave off a humanitarian nightmare in the region. Tensions have increased in South Sudan over clashes between forces loyal to President Salva Kiir and those backing his rival, First Vice President Riek Machar. The conflict has threatened the fragile power-sharing agreement that ended the 5-year civil war. Political instability has plagued the young nation, which only declared independence in 2011, with international observers urging restraint following the detention of March last month. Pakistan Army Chief General Asim Munir has peddled the two-nation theory, raking up the Hindu-Muslim divide. He said Muslims are different from Hindus in their culture, ambition, ideology and more. While addressing the Overseas Pakistani Convention in Islamabad on Wednesday, Asim Munir said that every Pakistani native should narrate the story of how the nation was born to their children, and the story of Pakistan should never be forgotten. India's Supreme Court has proposed to stay certain key provisions of the Waqf Amendment Act. These provisions include the power to de-notify properties declared as Waqf by courts and inclusion of non-Muslims in central Waqf councils and boards. A bench of Chief Justice Sanjeev Khanna and Justices Sanjay Kumar and K.V. Vishwanathan started hearing 72 petitions challenging the constitutionality of a new law. Well, the act is related to the management of a religious or charitable property under Islamic law. The top court proposed to pass the interim order, which was opposed by the centre, as it sought a detailed hearing before any such interim order. The bench will continue with the hearing later on today. In a significant crackdown on cybercrime in India's Kashmir Valley, Jammu and Kashmir police have seized over 7,000 bank accounts and detained more than 50 people for their involvement in alleged mule account scams. Around 20,000 local bank accounts are now under investigation. While the authorities did not disclose the transaction amount, reports suggest the total amount could be in crores. Mule accounts are third-party accounts used by cyber criminals to hide their actual identity. Scammers often connect with naive people on social media and fool them into opening new bank accounts. These accounts are active only briefly, allowing scammers to receive illicit funds. Japan's exports rose for a sixth straight month in March, but momentum is slowing as US tariff threats could outlook. The threats cloud the outlook. Exporters especially in electronics and pharma, ramped up shipments to the US ahead of potential duties. However, auto exports saw limited gains due to production constraints. Economists warned that prolonged tariffs could dent Japan's trade engine, hit wages and stall domestic recovery. The Bank of Japan flagged growing uncertainty as key players like Nissan begin adjusting production. China has hit back at the US yet again over the escalating tariffs being imposed by the US, China says that it won't respond to Washington's tariff numbers game. This comes after the White House detailed how Chinese goods now face duties of up to 245%, citing retaliation, the fentanyl crisis, and unfair trade policies. While the US has rolled back tariff for several countries, China remains targeted. Beijing has responded with countermeasures. It filed a complaint at the WTO and signaled a tougher stance by appointing a new trade negotiator. Talks remain off the table unless conducted with mutual respect, even as Washington presses China to make the first move. And gold surged to a new all-time high as market volatility spiked following Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell's comments on the ongoing trade war. Powell dampened hopes of quick Fed intervention, citing uncertainty around the tariff decisions. Gold prices climbed 3.5% on Wednesday, bolstered by a weakening dollar and fears of a global recession. The precious metal has gained nearly 28% this year. Meanwhile, the US and Japan began from trade talks, though no immediate resolution on tariffs was reached. Trump hailed the decisions as significant while preparing further pressure on global trade with China.